Welcome. I'm kind of doing something a little different today. I'm working on a special video that should come out relatively soon. Since I'm out and about, I decided I would do kind of a geopolitical walk and talk, which for me personally, I feel has been pioneered by Alex Christoforou of the RAND. So I'm a little bit south of Bangkok. In addition to getting some work done here, I'm also just I've got a family, and the kids, you know, it's good for them to get out, get some fresh air, see the sky every once in a while. So that's what I'm doing. And of course, I want to talk about Kherson. The Ukrainian offensive for Kherson, according to the Western media, it has officially begun, the long-awaited offensive. Now, if this actually materializes into this massive offensive we were told was coming, that's another story entirely. So I'm recording this one day after it began. So in Ukraine, it started yesterday morning. So now we have to wait and see what happens today in Ukraine. What Ukraine is going to do to demonstrate that it can sustain these offensive operations beyond a single day of very, very minimum gains. And I'm going to explain all of this. I'm going to go over a Guardian article here about the Kherson offensive, but I want to go over some talking points that I've gone over many times before about this Kherson offensive. If you go back to some of my most recent updates, however doubtful people were that this offensive was coming, I continuously said I will not underestimate Ukraine's ability to launch this offensive. No, they don't have any sort of military advantage over Russia to overwhelm Russian forces on the battlefield. We all know this, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to scrape together enough forces to launch some sort of offensive somewhere. Notice it's in Kherson. It's not where the main battle is taking place. The main battle right now is taking place in the Donbass region. That is Russia's main area of focus. Everything else at the moment is secondary. And when I say secondary, I mean not to say that it's unimportant, but Russia is not trying to conduct offensive operations across the entire line of contact. They're trying to advance in the Donbass region. Everywhere else, Russian forces are doing what are essentially holding operations or fixing operations, or a little combination of both. So around Kherson, it is a fixing operation all the way up to the line of contact, but of course it's a holding operation in the actual city of Kherson. So when you're doing a holding operation, you will try to give up as little territory as possible. I don't think that Russia will easily give up the city of Kherson. However, the area around it, these villages at the fringes of the territory Russia holds, they will give those up if need be, because they can always take them back later. This is not, at this point in time of the conflict, this is not the main focus of Russian forces. So I said they could stage some sort of offensive, but the best case scenario, the absolute best case scenario for Ukraine right now at this moment, is that they make advances around Kherson. Maybe they even take the city of Kherson. The best case scenario, everything going Ukraine's way. They even manage to take Kherson city. They will not go beyond Kherson city because they themselves destroyed the bridges connecting Kherson city to the other bank of the Dnieper River, so they will be stuck there. And this gain will be temporary. It'll be temporary because the Kherson offensive does not address two major things. Number one, Russia's main force in the east, in the Donbass region. There's absolutely nothing to address that. They are not attacking that force. They are doing nothing to undermine that force. They're not being resupplied by any sort of supply line passing through Kherson. So This does nothing to address that. And number two, it does not address any of the factors that are causing Ukraine to consistently lose everywhere across the battlefield. As a matter of fact, it does the exact opposite. For this political game, because that's what this is. The Kherson Offensive is a political, first and foremost, a political move to show some sort of gain for Ukraine on the battlefield. By doing so, they are going to expend well-trained men and equipment that they cannot easily replace. They're not going to be able to easily replace that. I've talked about how entry-level infantry take 4 months to train, to be effective on the battlefield. And the leadership of these men on the battlefield take years to develop. And once they're gone, they're gone. You're not getting them back in the middle of this current conflict. Maybe sometime in the future, but not now. So there's all of this to keep in mind. With that in mind, let's take a look at this Guardian article. It's titled, "Zelenskiy tells Russian forces to flee as Ukraine counteroffensive begins in Kherson." So this is the Western media. Whether it's really the Kherson offensive we've been hearing about or not, I don't know, but I'm just telling you what the Western media is announcing. And their source, of course, is Kiev. President vows to push Russia's military back to the border as advisors claim Ukrainian troops have breached front line in several places. And again, Ukraine has been doing this the entire time. They have been able to breach Russian lines pretty much everywhere except on the actual main front line in the Donbass region. That is one place Ukraine consistently retreats from. Everywhere else, Ukraine is able to carry out these opportunistic offensives to show for something, because on the actual main front line, they have nothing to show. Okay, so the Guardian says the long-awaited counteroffensive by Ukrainian troops has started in southern region of Kherson, with President Volodymyr Zelenskiy saying if they want to survive, it's time for the Russian military to flee. How many times have we heard this? This is a repeat, maybe on a larger scale, but a repeat of the so-called Kharkov offensive. This was ahead of Russian forces taking Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. Ukraine carried out this, what was a diversion. It was a diversion from the loss of territory in the Donbass. They decided to launch some sort of limited counter-offensive outside of Kharkov. And they took a little bit of territory. Again, Russian forces there were performing a fixing operation. Their job is to just keep Ukrainian troops tied up around Kharkov so they can't reinforce positions in the Donbass. So I don't know how Alex holds his camera up for so long. I don't know what rig he's using, but this is not working out too well for me. So we've heard this before. We've seen Ukrainian forces make advances again elsewhere beyond the main front in the Donbass. We've seen this before. We've seen them make temporary gains, and then we've seen these temporary gains evaporate, and Russian forces move back to this territory that Ukraine temporarily takes. That's what's going on right now outside Kherson. I guarantee you that is how this is all going to end. It says Ukrainian troops have broken through Russian defenses in several areas of the front line near the city of Kherson, a senior advisor to Zelenskiy claimed on Monday. But if you look even at pro-Ukrainian live uamap.com, you can see it's nowhere near the city. Maybe compared to the Donbass region or Kharkov, yeah, it's close to Kherson city, but it's nowhere actually near the city. We're talking remote villages that Russia can afford to give up and then take back later at a later time. These are troops performing fixing operations. When they get closer and closer to the actual city, that's where you'll start running into Russian troops who are doing holding operations. Zelenskiy did not address the counteroffensive specifically during his Monday evening address, but said the occupiers should know we will oust them to the border, to our border, the line of which has not changed. So I guess he's talking about beyond Kherson and eventually Crimea, because Ukraine is still trying to claim Crimea as their own territory. They also talk about Russian soldiers. They should surrender. They will be treated according to the Geneva Convention, which we all know they will not. Ukraine is returning its own. It will return the Kharkiv region, Lugansk region, Donetsk region, Zaporozhye region, Kherson region, Crimea. This will happen. So he's confirming that, yeah, they're talking about Crimea also. And unfortunately for them and everyone pinning their hopes on them, no, they are not. They are not going to be taking back these regions. Ukrainian troops have taken back 4 villages. Okay, 4 villages. Villages are trading hands every single day. I have read from Pentagon reports where even senior defense officials say, don't pay attention to these villages trading hands. They trade hands every single day, day to day. You need to look at the big picture. Even the Pentagon warns people against doing this, but this is all they have. So of course, this is what they're going to hold up as evidence that somehow this offensive is underway and it will be a success. So CNN is quoting Ukrainian military sources. The target is ultimately Kherson City, I guess, is what they mean. The operation began with heavy shelling of Russian positions and the rear, forcing them to flee, the source was quoted as saying. And I want to point something out, very important, that the Guardian throws in here, which they wouldn't do if this was actually happening for real. They would do everything in their power to prove to you that this is really happening. What they say instead is, the battlefield reports could not be independently verified. So that's their get out of jail free card that they put in there, knowing that this is psychological, that this is political, that this is not a sustainable offensive that is going to result in permanent changes on the map. It is the Kharkov offensive all over again. We could just debate on to what scale this will be carried out and how long it'll last before Russia reverses it. This is what we're looking at here. Today, we started offensive actions in various directions, including the Kherson region. Adding that Ukraine's forces had struck more than 10 sites in the past week and unquestionably weakened the enemy. Russia strikes 10 sites every day consistently since this all began. Again, I've been talking about the scale of what Ukraine is doing. That is held up as evidence of battlefield success versus the scale of what Russia is doing, which the West continuously dismisses as irrelevant. And they have to, because if they did just tally it up on both sides, it would be abundantly clear who has the advantage here. Let's see how they end this article. So they've got the presidential advisor and others warning not to speculate about the progress of a military operation before Ukraine's Ministry of Defense and Army issues official statements. I understand our wishes and dreams, but war is not content. Let's filter information and work professionally out of respect for our defenders. Zelenskiy agreed. Anyone who anyone want to know what our plans are? You won't hear specifics from any truly responsible person because this is war and this is what it is during the war. Well, if they were confident in anything that they were doing, they wouldn't have to word it. They're wording everything conditionally because they have no idea how far this is going to go. I think they realize that, again, the best case scenario is they somehow manage to take Kherson City, and then Russia's main force in the Donbass region comes and throws them out. And what I want to end on here is, after this offensive that is only going to make temporary gains and is being done not for any sort of strategic purpose, but for purely political reasons, this is going to cost Ukraine huge amounts of lives and equipment that they're not going to be able to replace. And they're going to show these gains to the world, but at the end of the day, this operation is going to actually make Ukraine's positions everywhere weaker. We saw this, again, the Kharkov offensive. They were touting all of this territory they very temporarily took. In some cases, they took a photo at a border post, and then they left. They withdrew and they retreated. That is how tenuous their gains were during this so-called Kharkov offensive. They had to draw forces from the Donbass region in order to carry out this offensive. This is also what they're doing for Kherson. They've drawn troops from all across the line of contact to do this offensive in Kherson. This is going to make Ukrainian positions weaker everywhere. And then once the Kharkov offensive is neutralized, once it reaches its full limit, and then it becomes stagnant and then is rolled back, Ukrainian positions everywhere, including in Kherson, will be ultimately weaker because of the amount of lives and equipment thrown away in what is essentially a purely political campaign. Now, I want to make one last thing extremely clear. I want to repeat this. Russia's main focus right now is the Donbass region. That is where their main force is. This is the one place where they want to make progress on the battlefield, that they want to continue pushing forward. Everywhere else, if they make some gains, fine. If they have the opportunity to push lines a little bit further in their favor around Kharkov, around Kherson, toward Nikolaev, okay. But the main focus is the Donbass region. If Ukraine had some sort of military advantage over Russia, they would be applying it in the Donbass region. That is where they need to stop Russian forces first and foremost. That is where their most important, best defended positions are, where their best troops and equipment at least were until this Kherson offensive began. That is where they need to actually confront, stop, and then push back Russian forces. But they cannot. And because they cannot, that is precisely why they're launching this operation around Kherson. It is a diversion away from the fact that they are powerless against Russia's main force. And if you cannot stop Russia's main force, and the only place you can push Russia back is where their forces are just holding or fixing Ukrainian troops, that doesn't bode well for your future. It doesn't. It really is ultimately a sign of weakness. No matter how successful this offensive toward Kherson is, it is temporary. It will be rolled back, and the Ukrainian military will be weaker than ever once this is all done. And of course, nothing in the Donbass region is going to change. I have 2 other videos coming this week in addition to this one. I just wanted to update you on the situation in Kherson and maybe show you a different background other than inside my office. So if you thought this video was useful, please like and share. Think about subscribing. If you're watching this on YouTube, check the video description below for other places you can find and follow my work. I am on Telegram. I update that several times a day. I'm also on Odyssey and Rumble, where all of my videos on YouTube are automatically backed up on. And if for some reason YouTube censors me off their platform, I will be uploading my videos to Rumble and Odyssey. In the video description below, I'll drop the link to this Guardian article, and also 4 ways you can help support my work. You can do that through Buy Me a Coffee, through Patreon, and also through PayPal. To everyone who has been contributing, thank you so much. That's what makes all of this possible, whether you're doing it month to month, one-time donations, or even if you're just helping share my work with others, getting the word out there. That is actually the most important thing that you can do, getting this information out to other people, helping inform people so they can make better decisions. So thank you for that, and as always, thank you for watching.